So what has my coach and y'all's pastor for life, what has y'all's pastor for life been up to? He's been homeschooling. He's appointed himself as being the homeschool principal. Is that right? And he's jumping in and he's filling in the blind spots in their education. Is that right? Not realizing that the IAG Farm platform, the YouTube platform, the YouTube home business is a huge blind spot for those boys, especially as it relates to them developing integrity, understanding the difference between a truth and a tale, or the truth and a lie, understanding the importance of being accurate and not exaggerating, yes, not claiming that everything is either beautiful or awesome or amazing when it clearly is not. Okay, to the naked eye, it looks ragged no matter where you look, whether you look at the sheep pen or the pig pen or the mini barn or the shed shack named Ernest, or you're looking at Emma/Emma, or you're looking at that raggedy old happy camper. No matter where you look, all you see is dismay and sadness, and yet they claim that things are beautiful or amazing. Okay, and so are the boys learning any of that stuff? Are they getting into any of that foundation when my coach is supposedly filling in the blind spots or filling in the gaps in their education? Okay, considering that Megan is the one that is college educated, Megan is the one that is high school educated, and somehow my coach feels like he's qualified, he's certified, he's capable. It's reasonable for him to come in and fill in some gaps. What about the gaps in his own education? What about his own gaps? Okay, and so now while he's filling in the gaps, did he bother to share with the boys that today is actually Juneteenth? Oh, by the way, happy Juneteenth to all the viewers out there. Happy Juneteenth. I guess now it's a federal holiday, which is great to see. I know for most of us in our cities, we celebrate, generally speaking, we heavily celebrate it on the weekend. The weekend before, we heavily celebrate it. I know in my area, we have parades, and we have shows, and we have performances, we have craft work, we have arts, we have food trucks, homemade food. People pull out the grills. We have mobile, talk about going mobile. We have mobile church services. It's normally a 2-day event. And so on Sunday, we actually they have a church service on one of the stages, probably like the center stage. There's face painting. There's gifts, there's trinkets to be purchased. There's African artwork. The fraternities show up, the sororities show up. Folks that you haven't seen in a decade, some of your classmates that you haven't seen in 20 years show up. People bring out their nieces, their nephews, their grandchildren, to get them exposed, get them accustomed to this Juneteenth celebration. And so I'm wondering, in my coach's efforts, oh, by the way, happy Juneteenth again. I'll say it again. I'll say it again because I know my coach is going to watch this video. And certainly by the time he airs his response to the Juneteenth celebration, by the time he airs his response, it will be around August 19th. It'll be a couple months. It'll be a couple months from now if he airs anything relative to the Juneteenth holiday. Of course, we've come to realize the reason why he doesn't emphasize calendar dates around that farm, considering that it's a fake farm and that it's just one big production, is that he realized that his content is old and out of date. And certainly, how can you keep track of dates if you're putting out content a month later, 4 or 5 weeks later? How can you keep track of dates? He's made the goofy decision to try to flash the date up there on the chalkboard when he's doing some of these sneak peeks or some of these promos. So he made that goofy decision just to try to show his viewers that the promos or the trailers are quote unquote modern time. But needless to say, that date that we see on the board is going to get further and further behind when it's actually being posted. We already know that those trailers are at least a week behind, And prediction, they're going to fall further and further behind. Okay, all right. And prediction, eventually he's going to stop showing the date on that homeschool chalkboard, that raggedy old chalkboard. But so now in his emphasis on filling in the gaps, hopefully my coach will see fit. They don't necessarily do history. They don't do social studies during their homeschooling. Not necessarily. So they're struggling so much with the reading. And we're talking about regular basic stories. How in the world would they have time to read stories about Juneteenth? How in the world would they have time to read historical stories? Okay, with them struggling to read stories about Taylor making 7 pancakes. How in the world would they have an opportunity to read up on Juneteenth? How would they have time to read up any historical issues, research any historical issues? Bear in mind, my coach is the same one that blurred out the portrait of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., okay, at his mama's house over at Grandma Lily's supposed amazing grace. He's the one that he's the one that saw fit, thought that it was suitable, thought that it was reasonable for a black man to blur out the photo, blur out the portrait of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, and so bear in mind, so now if he blurred that out, if he's never declared himself to be a black man, never declared his family to be a black family, the only time that he brought it up even slightly is in reaction to the reaction channels. Okay, so when he claimed that reaction channels and black reaction channels, or supposed black reaction channels, okay, so the only reason why he brought it up, and he kindly implied that he might be a black man and that they might be a black family, is when he was implying that the reaction channels represented black folk bringing other black folk down. And I'm like, okay, how about IAG? IAG representing black folk bringing other black folk down. Yes. Okay. And so now when you're hustling mature, senior, some elderly, some of those viewers, some of those subscribers, some of those ready Tim writers, okay, some of those woeful Tim worshipers, some of them are seniors. Okay. I'm not sure how many of them are seniors, but some of them are seniors. Those folks that are sending off those tips, those folks that are sending off those gifts, those folks that are paying tithes to a defunct ministry, okay, those folks that are making offerings to a defunct, a dormant, non-existent, ghost ministry, okay, most of those folks, many of them are mature, most of them are probably seniors, yes? And so talk about blacks bringing other black folk down. Okay, if IAG, if they were a black establishment, if they were a black home-based business, they would amount to the action or the activities of bringing other black folk down. Yes? Okay? And so they represent it. It's front and center. Yes? Okay? And so we see it. Okay? The only question here is whether or not they are truly a black family. But we understand that with the boys struggling on just their reading, with them struggling with their arithmetic, how in the world would they have time? Okay, and with their science and their science projects and their exploration and their discovery around their science. Okay, so they're struggling with all that. And so considering that my coach is who he is, okay, the only history, I imagine the only history that he feels is important for those boys is the IAG history. I know it sounds crazy. Of course it sounds crazy, yes? But every time we turn around, he has the IAG up on the flat screen. Okay, we know that he runs that IAG within the boys' room. We know they see it on the TV. That's all they see is the IAG. Okay, we already know that. Okay, and so, and we know he's one for strolling down memory lane. He's one for nostalgia. He's one for bringing up old accomplishments. Okay, old prior activity that the Walk by Faith ministry or that the prayer walks used to do, the supposed ministry that he did. Back when he was in Jackson. So we know that he is heavy on history. Unfortunately, the only history that's important to him is the IAG history. That's the only history that's important. Okay, that's the only history that he can churn, He can flip it, he can regurgitate it, he can rehash it, and then he can present it to his ready Tim writers, his foolish Tim faithful. Yes, he can present that history to you guys as if it was current accomplishment, current work, current ministry. Okay, and so of course he's not concerned. Okay, of course he's not concerned. He has no consideration for the Juneteenth and what it represents. Of course, those boys have not learned anything about the Emancipation Proclamation. Of course, they haven't learned anything about that. Of course, his boys will never hear about Juneteenth representing when word got back to Texas. I guess it was Galveston. I believe it was Galveston, Texas. But that the Juneteenth represented when slaves or enslaved Africans got word that they were free, that the Civil War was over. And oh, by the way, they got word 2 years later, I guess it was 1865 by the time they got word. And I believe that the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect around in January of 1863. And so those enslaved Africans, they didn't get word until 2 years after. 2 years after. Okay? But those boys will never hear that unless my coach, of course, he's going to watch this video, but unless my coach somehow passes it on to the boys, or unless he's watching it on his cell phone, he's watching my video or one of these reaction videos, and he forgets to shut it down, and he accidentally leaves it on the couch, and one of the boys wanders by and it just happens to notice and happens to hear this Juneteenth term, and they happen to get curious about it. Those boys will never hear about Juneteenth. Okay? My coach is not concerned with those boys knowing about anybody else's history. Okay? He doesn't want them to know about anybody else's history except his own. All right? And that's understandable. And it's not understandable, but it's evident. That's evident in the way that he carries himself. Yes. Obviously, he has Megan focus on his history, trying to pretend like it's the present. Yes. And certainly he's teaching those boys up in the fact that what you used to do, your previous actions somehow define your current fruit. Yes. Not your current actions defining your current fruit or your future fruit, but your previous actions. Okay. But happy Juneteenth to everyone. I'm going to do a real quick reaction. But what else has my coach been up to? Is that right? Okay. And so on these trailers, more and more, it appears as though he's using the same formula that he used on those P2P Nodcast rants. Is that right? And so now more and more he's using these trailers as an opportunity for him to rant. Is that right? We know the other day he was ranting about that person that was serving the Lord for 45 days. Okay? And I know from time to time, even on these promos, he's taking digs at the reaction channels. Is that right? And so now he's adopting the same formula that he used on the Nodcast rants, or the P2P motivations, I should say. And so now it appears that even though these trailers are about, 12 to 13 minutes long, now it appears that he's using these trailers, he's constructing them similarly. And so now we're saying that he's using 3 minutes of intro, about 3 minutes of intro for these trailers. He's got about 8 minutes of nonsense and foolishness in between. And I guess he's wrapping it up with 3 minutes of rambling. Okay. And now it's just the rambling is in the form of him giving you guys these sneak peeks. Okay. He's just rambling. He's just tossing in little bits and little pieces. Yes. Trying to piece together enough significant content in order to maintain his monetization. Yes. Okay. So trying to give you guys enough intro, enough nonsense, enough foolishness, and enough rambling to amount to 12 to 13 minutes of a supposed trailer, which is likened to actually being trailer trash. Trailer trash. I called it previously. Okay. And it's coming true. So he's trying to go with the same formula. Yes. Talk about being innovative. Okay. How do these trailers represent innovation? Okay. When using the same formula. Okay. Let me just get out here. Let me give a long intro. Okay. Let me do a lot of foolishness and nonsense in the middle. And then let me wrap it up with a bunch of rambling. But only this time I'm going to call them sneak peeks. All right. It's the same formula. Where's the innovation? Where's the innovation? I don't see the innovation in this. Okay, but I guess he's going with the same formula. And so, but I'm going to give a real quick reaction to the recent IAG Farms trailer trash. Trailer trash. I'm going to give a quick reaction to that video here. Early in the video, Tim, he shows his excitement yet again, as he always does. Why does he get so excited about talking about these peekaboos or peekaviews? Why does he get so excited? And I mean, when I say excited, I mean saucy. Why does he get so saucy? Why is there obvious zestiness? Why is there obvious zestiness coming out when he's talking about those peekaboos or peekaviews? What am I hearing in the tone of his voice? Yes, I never hear that excitement when he's talking about Megan. I never hear that level of excitement. He's never that bubbly when he's talking about the boys. Okay, he was never that delighted. He was never that tickled. He was never that tickled when he was talking about his mama Lily. Okay, and so why is he so tickled? Why is he so saucy? Why is he so zesty? Why is the zestiness coming out of him when he's talking about these peekaboos or pika peeks or sneaker queeks? Or why is he so excited about this? Okay, but early on he informs you heavy Tim followers that the barn is finished. Okay, all right. So by barn he means shed / shack / covered porch. First of all. All right. Secondly, the window is still cracked. You claim that you're going to leave it cracked as some type of historical documentation or some type of character for the shack. Some type of reminder for Megan that she allowed the window to be broken, I guess. I don't know. Some type of lasting memory for the boys that, hey, whatever you suffered, whatever punishment I doled out when you cracked the window, I want you guys to remember that. Forever. I want you to remember forever. Okay. But he declares that it's finished. Forget about the fact that it does not have a stair, does not have a working door. It is missing a fourth side. Like I said previously, it has about 2.5 walls. So forget about that fact. Forget about the fact that it's missing fascia on the other side of the roof. But he declares that it is finished. And of course, by finished, we know that means that he is finished. He's finished working on that shack, at least for this season. Okay, we do know that he'll come back around to working on it maybe about 5, 6, maybe next spring. Probably next spring, he'll come back to working on that barn. It will never be finished. Remember, my coach is addicted, supposedly addicted. You know, that's the word. He chose that wording. Okay, he said that he was addicted. And of course, him being a former addict, he should not be tossing that word around lightly. But those are the choices that he makes. But he says that he said many times that he's addicted to the process. Okay, which means in his case, he's not addicted to completing the process. He's not addicted to completing any projects. Okay, and so next spring, I'm guessing, I'm going to predict that next spring he comes back to the barn. Okay, and he does some additional work on the barn. Maybe he gets tired of hearing about the incomplete shack or shed, and maybe eventually he puts up that fourth wall. Maybe he builds a staircase. Bear in mind, staircase might take an hour. It's only going to be 1 or 2 steps. That might take an hour, maybe a couple of hours out of his time. It's not a big deal. Okay, but as it is, having those boys stepping on to milk crates, having Megan walk on milk crates, eventually little Benjamin is going to be walking up the milk crates, the little makeshift stair that he has. And so it's a safety hazard at this point. But eventually he'll probably come back to it. I'm guessing next spring he'll come back to it. But he declares that it's done, which means he's on to other things. What are you on to next, Coach? Tell us all about it.
Peekaboos, peekaviews, and we're here for another episode. And thank y'all for joining us again. And I'm looking at the barn behind me because the barn is finished, and we're moving on to our mobile home over here, residing this whole project of
Okay, Tim talks about those upcoming projects that we're going to see in this peekaboo. There he is getting excited. I'm like, okay, what type of prison games were you playing? Okay, what kind of flags were you hiding the flag and peeking out from underneath the cover? Why is this peekaboo concept? Why is this peekaboo term uh, so exciting for you? Why are you all bubbly and giddy about peekaboo? Okay, I'm not getting it, Coach. I wish that you would just stick with sneak. Even sneak a peek is better, yes. Or sneak peek, trailer, certainly trailer, certainly promo. Those are better terms coming from you, a former alpha male. Okay, this is peekaboo stuff that you. Okay, Coach, it's getting a little bit awkward at this point. But he talked about the Bible talking about counting the cost and making sure that you have everything ready, that you're going to be able to complete the job. Okay, and bear in mind that does not just refer to the materials. Okay, that doesn't just refer to the materials. That does not just refer to getting all of the OSB that you're going to need or all the siding that you're going to need. Doesn't just refer to ordering windows or ordering doors or what have you. Of course, it refers to the number one item, the number one ingredient, the number one supply that you're going to need in order to finish the job, Coach. And of course, that is resolve. Okay, that's resolve and determination. Okay, both of which you are lacking. Okay, clearly you're lacking resolve. Okay, when we see so many incomplete projects around that farm, when we remember the state of incompletion that you left the Amazing Grace or Grandma Lily's mobile home in, certainly you do not have the resolve. Okay, certainly you do not have the fortitude. Certainly you do not have the discipline. You do not have the discipline to complete these tasks. And actually, that's what the Bible was referring to. It wasn't referring to material items. Okay, it wasn't referring to wood and nails and other items that you can purchase from a store. It was referring to what's within you, what's in your heart. Okay, and clearly you're lacking at this point, Coach. Okay, but I'm sure it will be a supposedly interesting ride. Supposedly interesting ride, especially for your Ready Tim riders.
Siding, new windows, new doors begins on today's video, and y'all will see on today's sneak peek peekaboo that we went and got all of our material. We counted the cost, as the Bible says, made sure that we can not start the job and not have the things that we need to finish it. And so in this video, we're beginning the process. Y'all will probably see about 2 videos because we had to order our windows.
Coach says that you guys are going to see 2 to 3 videos of them ordering materials. Okay, bear in mind, okay, I know some of you steady Tim supporters, you guys don't keep track of the timelines, okay? But if he's talking about 2 to 3 videos, bear in mind that these videos come out about every other day. Okay, 2 to 3 videos. Now, first of all, if he says 2 to 3 videos, that means it's going to be about 5. It'll be about 5 videos. Yes, guaranteed. Okay, so it's going to be about 5 videos. If he's going every other day, okay, what does that mean? That means he's going to spend about a week and a half. Okay, no, actually, probably about 2 weeks. That means you can look forward to about 2 weeks of videos of him ordering materials, which of course is going to push his content even further behind. Yes. Okay, because you're going to get those 2 weeks of material ordering videos, and then you're going to see him start to do some construction work, start to do some rehab work around the gutters or around the windows, etc., etc. And so in his current state of being 3 to 4 weeks behind, look for that to push out to a month and a half behind on this outdated content. You can look forward to it. Okay, the truth frees itself. Yes, time tells the truth. Okay, and so in his efforts to give you guys these promos, okay, and to pretend as though you guys are getting some current information, he's revealing the fact, okay, that he's just going to push the content further and further out. Okay, but okay, buckle up your seatbelts. Okay, you heavy Tim riders, buckle up your seatbelts.
order a patio door and everything. So y'all will probably see about 2 or 3 videos of us getting material, and then y'all will see us getting started. I actually got started, yesterday, and we ripped down.
Tim talks about how they're clearing the way as far as taking down the gutters, etc., getting ready to replace the windows and whatnot. And like I said, you ready, Tim Riders? Buckle up your seatbelts, okay? Not so much for the excitement, but buckle up your seatbelts. It's going to be a long ride, a long ride. Yes, okay. And they talk about how supposedly Megan convinced him to put siding up on him. Okay, but certainly my coach, he realized that it was goofy to put on a new porch, attach a new porch, a $8,000 porch to a raggedy old mobile home. Yes, a raggedy old sardine can of a single wide. He realized that was goofy. Okay, even for him, it's goofy. And okay, bear in mind, we have lowered the standard of what we expect to see from Tim. Okay, we've lowered the standard on what you guys should expect from your pastor, Tim. Okay, but apparently he realized it was a bit goofy. Although he was going to get months and months of content out of that porch build, I guess he realized that, okay, well, I can at least double the content if I actually go ahead and put the siding up on the mobile home. Certainly if I'm putting in windows or doors, I can triple the content. Okay, and that's what we're all about around this IAG, the supposed IAG home-based business. And so he talks about clearing the way. And so you guys buckle your seatbelt. Yes. Get yourself a nice pillow while you're at it, because it's going to be a long ride. But my coach, he goes further and he talks about this comment that he got on the build of the barn, I guess when he was finishing up the painting of the barn. And I guess the viewer said that it was the most worked on barn ever. And it's true. And so, of course, he declares that person as being a hater. He declares that that person was trying to discourage him. Whereas, in fact, some people would say the person was trying to encourage him to pick up the pace. Yes. Not twiddle his thumbs, not drag things out, not water down the project for the sake of additional or excessive content. Okay. So some people would say that person is trying to encourage him and also offering a honest reflection of the work around that barn. And of course, my coach got defensive. Why did he get defensive? Why would he get defensive? Supposedly he's getting his visions from God. Who gets defensive about visions that supposedly come from God? Especially if you're an ex-pastor. What ex-pastor would get defensive? If he's getting instruction, if he's getting his missions from God, what is there to be defensive about? But for some reason, my coach gets defensive. He goes into defense mode, yes, alongside his beast mode, yes, which implies a certain amount of aggression. He also has this defensive mode where he gets defensive. And I'm like, okay, don't they kind of cancel out one another a little bit? Okay, if you're beast mode, but you're in defense mode, it kind of cancel out a little bit, yes? It takes a bit away from the beast mode, yes? And so I guess now, like I said, so with him changing up the model, with him applying innovation to these trailers, okay, he's taken to ranting, and now I guess he's ranting about one of his viewers. He's ranting about the comments. Okay, the comments that he shut off on his regular IAG videos, the comments that he shut off on that Resurrection Camper platform. Okay, and so now he's ranting about the comments. And I guess this is one of the comments that he did not delete. I guess this is one of the viewers that he did not block. He probably did block them. Really? Nip it in the bud? Is that right? So chances are he did block this person. So he's using it for the sake of his content. He can't help himself but to rant about it. Well, all right, Coach. Tell us about how you got this encouragement that you deem to be discouragement, which now you're claiming is one of the most awesome comments that you ever received. Tell us about it, Coach.
Gutters, and we're starting to clear the way, for this new siding and new doors and windows and everything, and this new amazing porch. But looking at the barn in the background, reminded me of a comment that we got. And that comment it may be the most amazing comment I've ever read before, because it encouraged me so much. And I don't think it was meant to encourage me. I think it was meant to discourage me, but it was super encouraging, because the last video we did on the barn build, somebody said the longest barn build ever, or something like I've never seen somebody work on a barn this much. And I thought about it.
All right, so Tim claims that his first response to the comment was, "That's amazing." And we know that was not his reaction, okay? We know that my coach was reaching for the delete button. And when he saw that, he was reaching for the delete button, yes? So he was going to have the delete button in one hand, and he was going to have the block button in the other hand. That was his first reaction. We know that was his first response. We already know that, okay? But he claims that he felt that it was amazing, all right? And so now he talked, well, first of all, this barn is finished. Okay, and clearly it's not finished. All right. And so he talks about, well, when someone walks up to your barn, first of all, when they walk up, well, anyway. So he says, well, when somebody walks up to your barn, they're not going to ask you how long it took you to finish it. They're just going to say it's an amazing barn. Okay, now, first of all, no one from the outside world is walking up to that barn. Okay. Second of all, it's not a barn. Okay. And so if someone did happen to wander onto that farm, okay, if someone happened to climb the gate, the lock gates of that farm, and for one reason or another wander toward the back of the property and wander up close to that structure, if anything, they would say, "What an amazing shed you have here." Okay, what an amazing shack. If only you would put up an extra wall, you could have an amazing shack here. An amazing outhouse, maybe. Yes. Okay, and so first of all, no one is walking up to it. Who are these people that are walking up to it? Okay, if you're talking about the boys walking up to it, we know that their responses are forced. We know that their responses are scripted. Okay, otherwise the kids, they're emotionless, they're expressionless. Yes. Okay, and now we know Megan, of course, she'll pretend in her efforts to stroke your ego, in her efforts to support your insecurities and to quell your anxiety. Yes. We know Megan will walk up and say, "Oh, it's an amazing barn." We'll call it a barn. Yes. So first of all, no one's walking up to it. All right. And so that's the first issue. And so, oh, by the way, on the last video, you reminded the viewers that time is money. Okay, and so if you spent, I thought it was 2 years that you spent. Here you're admitting that you spent 2.5 years working on that shack, yes? And if you say 2.5 years, that means it's probably closer to 3 years that you've been working on that shack. Okay, and so now, if you assert that time is money, then that means you wasted a whole bunch of money. You talk about it being a debt-free structure, okay? But time truly is money, because the time that you spent out there goofing around on that shack, you could have spent that time with the boys. You could have spent that time bonding with the boys, nurturing the boys, building up the boys, okay? Let alone actually contributing to the education of the boys. You could have spent that time being more productive, okay? You could have spent that time with Megan, okay, strengthening your marriage, okay? Modifying or reducing some of your oppression of Megan, yes? Okay, you could have spent that time in the Word, in the Bible, in the Scripture, yes? Okay, and so certainly if you spent 2 or 2.5 years fiddling around with that barn, a lot of wasted time, aka a lot of wasted money, the value, you just burned up a lot of value. Okay, and so although no one might ask you how long it took you to build that shed, it was irresponsible for you to waste that time. You wasted good family time working on that shed. And it's still incomplete. But tell us more.
I said, that's amazing, because we worked on this barn for 2 years. And in those 2 years, now this barn is finished. And I told the person, I said, when somebody comes up and looks at your barn, they don't say, "That's a good looking barn. How long did it take you to build it?" You know what I'm saying? or they don't ask those type of questions. But all they see is a finished, beautiful barn. So even if it did take 2 years to finish it, it doesn't matter when it's done, because now you have a finished and complete debt-free barn. But I thought about all of the things that we did while we were working on this barn, because we worked on this barn for probably 2 years and probably 3 months or something like that, not actually working on it the whole time. We were working on it for a month here, a month there, 2 months here, 2 months there, and then we finally finished it. But I thought about all we did, and
All right, so when Tim gets done stuttering, okay, and now there are plenty of us that have stuttering issues. Some of us have overcome them. Some of us, our stuttering will be lifelong, yes. But unfortunately for my coach and y'all's pastor, when he starts to stutter, it's one of the tails. It's one of his tails. I mean, along with him adjusting his new glasses, along with him saying "for real," along with him giggling and okay, he has about 3 or 4 tails. Okay, and these are tails for when he's falsifying the truth. Okay, aka telling lies or exaggerating, however you want to put it. Okay, and so one of his tails is he stutters heavily. All right, so he may already have a stuttering issue that he has ignored or has not addressed properly. But certainly when he's stretching the truth, he starts to stutter. It's documented. It's irrefutable. It's irrefutable. All right, but when he's done stuttering, he talks about, well, it may have taken 2 years. Now, you just told us it took 2 years and 3 months, which means it took at least 2.5 years. But he goes back to the 2-year concept. So he said, well, it may have taken us 2 years to complete it. But in the meantime, we established 2 homesteads. And I'm like, okay, good word selection on the word established. Okay, so now when you say established, that's such a general term. What does that mean? Yes? Okay, now, first of all, Grandma Lily does not have a homestead. Okay, that non-existent homestead actually belongs to my coach and Megan, or Timothy Jr., or whoever. Okay, so she does not have a homestead. Okay, if anything, she has a mobile home that she purchased. It's been attached to land that Tim and Megan own. I guess she has a shed in the back. She has a chicken hutch / rabbit coop, terror dome / coffin attached to it that my coach Tim insisted on attaching to her shed. So she has that. She has her backyard, her fenced-in backyard. She has her dogs, and she also has Solo, that dog that Tim forced upon her. And she has some livestock. Okay, and so Grandma Lily does not have a homestead. She doesn't have a homestead. All right. So if anything, there's property that belongs to Tim. So he talks about when we established 2 homesteads. And then what does established mean? It's such a general term. Okay, it's such a general term. And so you claim that the reason why you walked away from your ministry work is because you guys are establishing your homestead. And what does that mean? Does that mean when we're done milking all we can out of this YouTube thing, when we've plateaued on the YouTube, when we plateaued on the content, then we need to start getting into some additional projects, and so that somehow we can go ahead and stir up the donations and stir up the tips, stir up the gifts, stir up the offerings again? Is that what establishing it means? Okay, now we need to stir things up. We need to jumpstart the donations again. We need to jumpstart our content, try to add in some actual tangible content. Okay, so we know establishing is a general term. We know that the homestead does not exist down there at the Woodlands property. There is no homestead. If anything, the property is just land. Okay, and then it's questionable about whether or not there is a homestead at IAG Farms. It's questionable. It's debatable at this point, Coach. But you talk about the fact, well, during the 2 years of fiddling around with the barn, which is far from being complete, we established 2 homesteads, and I'm like, Coach, we don't see even a single homestead at this point, Coach. But tell us more.
And it encouraged me so much, because the thoughts were, Yeah, we worked on the barn for 2 years, but in that 2 years while we were working on the barn, all we did was establish not just one homestead, but 2 homesteads. We established our homestead and then established grandma and her homestead down there as well. We not only
Oh, shit. Did he just say that they renovated 2 homes? Is that right? Hold on. HEMA, as in hoarding even more material assets. That sardine can of a mobile home that you call Emma, that's not even fully renovated. You said you completed renovation. We do know that one of the bathrooms in HEMA is incomplete. We already know that, yes? You've already admitted on previous videos that you're about 80% complete on the interior of HEMA. Okay, and so there's some work that we haven't even seen that's yet to be completed. We do know that there's a towel that covers the entrance to the homeschool room. Okay, so that's incomplete. We do know that there were outlet covers that were not in place. We do know that there were electrical switches that were left uncovered or unshielded. And so we've seen a little bit of the incompletion inside of HEMA. Okay, but now you're claiming that it's complete? And then how dare you? How dare he? How dare he claim that he completed renovation on the supposed amazing grace that is Grandma Lily's mobile home? How dare he? Okay. I can't even go back to it, but we do know that last time we saw him working or supposedly working on the interior, the floors were only 50% completed. Okay. Half of the mobile home was incomplete. Okay. I don't even want to go back to it. Okay. I'm so insulted. Okay. I'm so insulted for the viewers, for the ready, for the heavy, for the steady Tim supporters. I'm so insulted for you guys. Okay. I know you guys are gluttons for punishment in defense of your pastor. But good gracious. Okay. Grandma Lily's mobile home was left at about a 40% completion level, no higher than 50%. Okay. And so I'm insulted for you guys that he's coming back around. Okay. He's insulting your intelligence. Certainly insulting your memory of the fact that the home, Grandma Lily's home, is at most 50% complete. Now he's he's implying that he completed. He's claiming that he completed Grandma Lily's house. Oh my goodness. He talks about installing 2 septic tanks. Okay, bear in mind, contractors install septic tanks. Okay, and generally speaking, they work independently. They are the experts. They are the professionals. They work independently. You talk about installing water lines. Okay, and so how did any of that activity interfere with your work on the supposed burn? Okay, how can you claim that you were actually doing that work simultaneously with you piddling around on the supposed burn? How can you claim it, Coach? How dare you?
only renovated 1 house in those 2 years, we completely renovated 2 houses while we were working on that barn in the times in between. Not only did we install 1 septic tank, but we installed 2 septic systems, 2 systems of water lines, pasture fencing, 3.
Tim talks about there being so many things that they completed or that they worked on, in those 2 years. He talks about, and of course he's getting nervous. He's using multiple tales. He's giggling. He's giggling. He's got a little bit of stuttering going on, and he's adjusting his glasses. And of course he's looking over his shoulder, okay, to see who might be listening to his exaggerations. And so we know that he's stretching the truth. Okay, and he knows that he's stretching the truth, but he can't help himself. But he's talking about, well, in those 2 years of us fooling around on that shed shack, we've accomplished so many things. And he talked about putting up 3 acres worth of pasture fencing. And I'm like, okay, Coach, now putting up that fencing may have amounted to about 1, maybe a couple of weeks worth of work. Maybe 2 weeks worth of work. We're talking about 2 years and 3 months. So how can you claim that putting in we'll give you a little bit of grace. Let's say 3 weeks. Let's say that the fencing would take 3 weeks. Let's say it would take 3 with all the breaks that you take. Let's just say, and with all the editing that you do, let's just say that it would take 3 weeks for you to put up that pasture fencing for 3 acres. I don't care if you put up fencing for 10 acres. Let's just say it took you 3 weeks to put up the fencing. Okay, and remember, the fencing goes on the perimeter of the acreage. Yes? Okay, so it's not 3 acres of fencing. It's not 3 acres, okay? Okay, it's not thousands upon thousands upon thousands of yards of fencing. Okay, the fencing goes on the perimeter. Oh, boy. But so now, maybe 3 weeks to put up the fencing. And so how in the world can you equate 3 weeks of actual work to 2.5 years worth of nonsense around that shed shack that you call Ernest?
3 acres of pasture fencing on our farm. We bought 5 more acres. We got my mom settled down on her homestead. We did this, we did that. It's just so many things that we have done in those 2 years. And, the thing is,
Tim, and taking a shot at one of his dedicated viewers. Okay. And I'm guessing he must have blocked this person. Okay. Because he's going in both feet in on insulting this individual, just like he insulted that person that was doing service for the Lord for 45 years and claiming that they were wasting their time. But Tim talks about how he completed his barn in 2 years. He completed an incomplete barn. I'm sorry. He completed an incomplete shed. So he completed an incomplete shed. Okay, and so Coach, certainly, well, I don't know if you certainly realize it, but Coach, that's a contradiction. They cancel out each other, yes? You can't complete something that's in a state of disrepair. You can't complete something that's in a state of being incomplete. You can't complete something that is yet finished, that is still unfinished. Okay? And so you slapping some paint on it, that doesn't constitute it being complete. Okay? But you take a jab. Okay? In your case, it's a haymaker. But you can't help it, Coach. Petty and defensive. Where's the security? All we see is insecurity and instability at this point, Coach. When you talk, I completed my barn in 2 years. And you're like, what have you done in 2 years? Well, Coach, if you did not block this person, if you would not have blocked this viewer, probably a faithful viewer, by the way, if you had not blocked this viewer, then I'm sure the person would respond. You could find out what they have been up to in 2 years, yes? And I'm guessing in the span of 2 years, they were being a loving spouse, okay, for their own spouse. I'm sure in the span of 2 years, they were honoring their parent, honoring their father, honoring their mother, okay? I'm sure in the span of 2 years, they were doing that. In the span of 2 years, they were probably educating their kids, whether it be homeschooling their kids, okay, which can be successful. Okay, for most families, it can be successful. Yes, it's just unsuccessful for the IAG homeschool. Okay, but for most other homeschool families, it's successful. Okay, so in the span of 2 years, they could have been homeschooling their child. They could have been properly educating their child by sending them off to public school. Okay, so whether they're doing proper education at home or whether they're doing proper education at the public school, or they may have been paying for private school. Okay, so in the span of 2 years, they could have been educating their kids. Yes. Okay. What else? What else could they have been doing? They may have built up their own shed. They may have actually built up their own barn to completion, in the span of 2 years. Okay, so there's no telling what your average human being, what your average responsible person, responsible head of the household, or responsible mom, responsible wife may have accomplished. There's no telling what they have accomplished in 2 years. There's no telling. But certainly they did not waste their time on a barn for 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, and then turn around and claim that it's a barn in the first place.
I would ask that person, so I built my barn in 2 years, and I also got all these other things done. in those 2 years, what have you gotten done? You know what I'm saying?
All right. So after Tim claims that Jesus is written all over his work on that barn, forget about the fact that God is not the author of confusion. Yes. Okay. He's actually the author of completion. Yes. Okay. We judge a man by his works. Okay. And so when we see you dragging out the work for 2.5, 3 years, okay, we judge a man by his fruit. Yes. And so when we see this tainted fruit, this raggedy fruit that you call a barn, when we see the neglect around your boys and around Megan and around those animals, even around the animals, yes, the fruit that we've seen, the fruit that you chose to share with us. Okay, we didn't dig into this. You showed it. You posted it. You edited it. You edited the content and you posted it. So the fruit that you chose to show us, that you chose to share with us, the fruit that you were somehow proud of is tainted. It's rotten, raggedy old fruit. Dirty, dusty, fecal, dust-covered fruit. Infested. The fruit is infested. And so how can you claim? How dare you claim? Talk about using the Lord's name in vain. How dare you claim that Jesus is written all over your work around that shed shack barn? How dare you claim that? Yes. Especially being the pastor that you was, the pastor that you were. I'm sorry. It's rubbing off. The illiteracy, the IAG illiteracy, I think it's rubbing off on me. Watching these videos, it's hard for me to take them. I'll try to stick around just a little bit longer. Okay? But how dare you claim that Jesus is written all over the work that you've done on that shed shack? Okay? How dare you?
And it's just amazing because I know that the Lord, that Jesus is written.
All right, and so for you ready Tim writers, Tim, he goes in and he tries to explain this beast mode fixation that he has lately. Okay? He talks about the fact that it's a term that young folks use from time to time. And I'm not sure, are we talking about Christian young folk? Are we talking about young folk in the street? Are we talking about young folk that are just hanging out, that are gang banging, robbing folk? Which young folk are we talking about? Okay, and so especially considering the fact that at age 36, my coach is no longer a young folk. He's no longer a young person, yes? And so why is he using terminology that the young folk supposedly use, yes? He's supposed to be an example, okay? Supposedly Jesus is written all around your life, yeah? Supposedly your life is all about God, supposedly. Your travels, your actions are supposedly all about God. And so why are you using terminology? Why are you using worldly terminology, secular terminology to define the actions of a supposed Christian? Okay, so he defines it for you guys and he talks about, well, beast mode doesn't mean that I have the mark of the beast. I've only labeled myself as a beast. And I forced Megan to also label me as a beast. And I'm proud to be a beast. Okay, because if the young folk can be beasts, then I can be a beast also. And like, it makes no sense. But he talked, well, let me recraft. Let me just say, well, it's not about being a beast. Okay, it's not about being marked, being labeled with the mark of the beast. It's about having an intense focus on a difficult task. Okay, having an intense focus on a task that is not easy. And like, okay, coach, I mean, you can define it all you want, coach. Okay, we still have reservations. We still have trepidation. Okay, it's still debatable. We still have concerns about you being so excited about that term. Okay, we know that you do have other sides to yourself. Some people say you have another side. Okay, you have that side that involves violence, involves you breaking out windows and kicking down doors and disciplining your boys with the heavy hand of Principal Tim, with the heavy hand of Principal Tim. We do know you have those other sides to you, yes? And so when you talk about this beast mode, and it's something that you adopted recently, you talk about it being a mode that you go into from time to time. Okay, we know that Megan is very familiar with the beast mode. And we know that Megan, she's seen the beast mode, but not as it relates to completing projects, not as it relates to completing tasks or approaching challenging or difficult projects. Yes. So we know Megan is fully aware of the beast mode. Okay. She's fully aware. She's fully familiar with the beast mode in you, coach. But tell us more.
Stay tuned for the amazing things that are happening. Like I say, it's going down. Like it's straight up beast mode. And I've explained before that beast mode, that's this mode that I go into. You know what I'm saying? That I'm able to go into. And it's really like a younger folks thing. Maybe some older people don't understand that. But we say it, people say it in sports all the time. But beast mode just means an intense focus for a particular amount of time to accomplish a goal that is not easy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's going to be challenging and difficult. But
he goes further into his explanation, his defense of this beast mode, as far as it being acceptable for a Christian to go into beast mode around children, around women, around the fire. He talks about how Jacob wrestled with God. And I'm like, okay, now I do remember a couple of videos ago, my coach talking about how he often disagrees with God. He often disagrees with God. He doesn't agree with God all the time. And I'm like, okay, wait. Okay, disagreeing with God, there's disagreement with God, then there's disobedience to the word of God. There's disobedience. And so, which is it? Especially as a supposed person that's all about God. If you're all about God and the word of God, then how in the world can you disagree? Okay, what happens when you disagree with the word of God? What kind of ministry is this? When you disagree with the word of God, so you just craft the word, you just make up your own interpretation, you scribble out stuff in the Bible. Do you go in certain verses and no, this one is no good. This one is good. I like this one. One where it says, you know, the man is the head of the household. I like this one. I'll take this one. This one, other one over here, it says, okay, well, I'm supposed to be submitting to my wife. Let's scratch that one out. Okay, so how do you disagree with God? As a former man of God, as a supposed person on this all about God platform, how in the world do you disagree with God? Now, certainly all of us are disobedient from time to time. Okay, certainly. But disagreeing with God? Okay, who are you? I mean, what level? Okay, how are you even at a level where you can disagree with God? Okay, now we do understand what happened with Satan. We do understand about Satan being cast out. Okay, some people would argue that Satan disagreed with God. Okay, so, and we know what happened with Satan. Yes, Satan disagreed. Some people would say Satan disagreed with God. Not only was he disobedient, but he disagreed. And what happened to him? So I'm like, okay, coach, be careful. Tread lightly, especially when you articulate this stuff out loud. It's one thing for you to think in your arrogance that you're as good or better than God. Okay, but for you to disagree with God would imply that God is wrong about certain things. Okay, it's an infallible word, but you're disagreeing with it. You're finding fault with the word of God. Okay, what am I hearing, coach? What am I hearing?
going into this mode, going into this mind frame where it's like I'm laying hold of this thing. It's kind of like Jacob when he wrestled with God. It's like, you know, he wasn't willing to let God go until he blessed him. You know what I'm saying? And it's going into that mode to where, you know, we lay hold of that for which Jesus has laid hold of for us. But like the Bible says, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead, that I may attain or
Tim talks about the Bible saying that it's not that I've attained, but I press on. Yes. And so that means, you know, that refers to having attain the ultimate goals, yes, but pressing on, yes. It does not pertain to having an incomplete burn and moving on to other projects when you've left other things unfinished. It does not pertain to that, coach. But we do understand how you want to use that interpretation. Okay, but now you are claiming that the barn is finished. Clearly, it's not finished. If it was finished, Coach, we would get some type of final tour, some final walkthrough, at least some final walk around, Coach. Why are we not getting a final walk around for that shed? Okay, Coach. If it's finished, why not walk us around, Coach? Okay. Why are we just looking at the exterior paint? Okay, why not walk around to the front of the shed? Yes. Okay, wouldn't the front be the most important side of that shed? If it's finished, if you're doubling down on it being finished and you're pressing on to other projects, pressing on to other tasks, yes? Why not give us a full walk around, Coach? Huh? But you're moving on to other projects, Coach. We've seen it before. We see it every season, Coach. We've come accustomed. We've become accustomed to seeing it, Coach. What you call pressing on. Okay, we call it you changing the season, leaving things unfinished, and moving on. That's what we call it, Coach. All right. But pressing on, we'll have to see how this pressing on goes, Coach. We'll have to wait and see. But as for me, I can't take anymore. I promise you guys, I can't take no more.
Lay hold of that for which Christ Jesus has already laid hold of for me. It says that I'm not already perfected, or not that I have already attained, but I press on. You know what I'm saying? So we have finished the barn. And now it's time to press on. And
I can't take no more. That's it for my reaction to that recent trailer trash about them moving on to other projects or what have you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Chop it up in the comments. Burner Tim, new heavies, old heavies. I expect to see you guys in the comments as usual. I want to shoot out some love to my current subscribers. Thank you for showing me that love. For those viewers that have not yet subscribed, thank you. For those viewers that have not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing so that we can continue to shine that light. Until next time.